You know when you have like your own internal polling and you're pretty sure you know what the answer is going to be, but you want to make sure it's not just a couple of loud voices in a minority. So you put up a poll knowing what those answers are going to be, but you just want it confirmed, and the bias is confirmed big time. Let's talk about these poll results. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Mike here today to talk about a little 2021 action. And you know what? I am the type that likes to plan about a good year in advance. I don't like to be caught off guard. So while I thought it was probably a little early to be doing this, I just kind of wanted to get it out there of what my post-Cosmere, post-Wheel of Time, post-Dresden Files, post-Witcher plans really were, because those are pretty much dominating 2020. And so I want to talk about some new series I was planning on getting into in 2021, but I just kind of wanted to gauge what you guys would be the most interested in. Now, I put up 5 different fantasy series to choose from. There's Malazan, Book of the Fallen by Scott Erickson. There is The Belgariad by David Eddings. The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. The Farseer trilogy and maybe all Realm of the Underlings by or Elderlings, not Underlings, Elderlings by Robin Hobb, and the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. These are 5 series that I've had on my radar for quite a bit. Some mostly just from viewer urging, and others just because I there's some reviewers that I really trust, and a lot of them that kind of align with what I feel. And so some of the ones that they had rolled in kind of high regard, I definitely wanted to kind of put on this list here. But I'm going to kind of talk about the results and talk about really what the plan is going forward. Now, I know, like I said, this is a while in advance, but I just want you guys to know, stick with me for the long haul, because a lot of people, like I've said, I feel like once I finish Wheel of Time, there's going to be like a mass exodus, and a lot of people are going to bail. I feel like a lot of my Wheel of Time, a lot of my wheelies, they're just here just for that, and then they're just like, all right, well, it's been real, see you later, have a good life. So I kind of wanted to let you know things I'm going to be working on post Wheel of Time. And hopefully that you guys would kind of try to stick around and hear what I think about some of those things, because there are other fantasy series out there, and I won't live long enough to read all of them, so I kind of want to prioritize some of the longer series. And with Wheel of Time out of the way, I feel like I'll be able to pick up another epic series, because I always said I am willing to read a long epic series, but I'm not going to do it at the same time. I knew that if I started something like a Malazan or something while I was trying to do Wheel of Time, I'd never finish either of them, and I didn't want that to become the case. So I said until I finished the Wheel of Time, I was not going to start a second really, really deep fantasy series. So really only one of these is what I would call a really, really deep fantasy series. So it kind of feels like I was stacking the deck there. But yeah, since I've had this channel, I've had urgings for what actually won this poll. But let's talk about the results, and let's talk about each one here. Coming in last place was The Belgariad by David Eddings. These are books I've had since high school. These are books that I've had on my TBR, I guess you'd say, more since high school. These are actually a friend's. He loaned these to me a while back and just said, keep them until you got time to read them, because there was something that he really liked. I know that they are a little bit more traditional fantasy, but I feel like, Wheel of Time, I feel like it's mostly traditional fantasy, so I felt like I would have room for something else like this after I finished that. This got the poll got, between Twitter and YouTube, it got a combined 297 votes. Yeah, I feel like that's a decent enough sample size. I mean, that's about 10% of my audience. So I do wish more people would have voted, but I know a lot of people still don't see the whole community tab, and a lot of them don't use Twitter and stuff like that. So all I can really do is go off of this data. So 18 votes. That's 6% for David Eddings, The Belgariad. Know absolutely nothing about it except that it's old school traditional fantasy, and it leads to a much longer series by him. But The Belgariad is just 5 books, and they're relatively look like light reads, so that wouldn't be too hard of a thing to get into. This one I put on the poll before, and it never seems to get much traction with you guys, and it bums me out, because it's a series that I feel like I would really like. There's a reviewer on Goodreads named Patrick. If you are into fantasy books and you follow Goodreads reviews, you probably know who he is. He's always going to be like the top, the most likes, the most interaction of any fantasy review out there. But pretty much my opinions usually end up aligning with his, except for Liza Locklemore, Name of the Wind, but that's a different story. But we usually agree on these things quite a bit. And a series that he always talks about is The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Now, a lot of people I know that have read this series say, Mike, based off of what you say in your reviews, I feel like you would absolutely love this series. I think that light's just too bright for these white books. And I'll fix the lighting one day. I don't know how. I'm not a professional. But from what I gather reading his reviews, yeah, it sounds kind of like Abercrombie Light. Like, I feel like I would really, really like this series. And I have had it on my radar for a long time. Like I said, I bought these books, and I know I want to read it. But every time I put it on one of these polls, you guys don't vote for it. It finished fourth, 8% of the vote, just 25 votes. But even the author himself did a pretty good sales job on me about reading these books. So, super friendly guy, John Gwynne. He seems like he writes really, really fast too. I think he puts out one of these a year. And look, these aren't tiny, you know. So he puts out like one book a year, it seems like. So he writes really fast. He wrote these 4 in this world. Then he wrote a sequel trilogy that takes place like 100 and something years later. And that's 3 books. It's concluding this April, and he's already starting another series. So yeah, the guy pumps out tomes, it looks like, each year. So if you are a fast writer and you're a quality writer, like a Brandon Sanderson, I'm going to read your stuff because I trust you. I trust that you aren't just putting crap out there. You're putting quality stuff out there, but you also realize, hey, this is my job. I better write. So... Hey, George, what's going on? Third place. This one actually kind of surprised me a little bit because it seems like people are so into it on the channel. I thought it would kind of get a little higher than this. I actually thought it would finish second, but it finished third here. 47 votes for 16%. I don't know if you guys can see that. I only have it on digital. This is the Powder Mage series by Brian McClellan. I know that he is a student of Brandon Sanderson, and I know that doesn't automatically equal success. But from what I've gathered in reviews and feedback from people, he's one of Sanderson's students that really paid attention, and he learned the lessons, and he has actually taken them on. I know, obviously, Brandon is going to hype up his own students or whatever, so, I mean, obviously, Brandon Sanderson's been, like, the biggest advocate for this series, but a lot of Sander fans that I know really say, yeah, it's quality stuff, really, really good magic system, just fun reads. He just finished his sequel trilogy, actually, so it's like 6 books, but Powder Mage trilogy definitely is something that is on my radar and I want to do. But you guys like 2 other series on this list better. Second place with 67 votes. That's good for 23% of the vote. The Farseer trilogy, obviously starting with Assassin's Apprentice, is the only one I have because they're just putting out these hardcover deals with this. And I don't know if this is accurate, but I believe this is the first time they've been available in hardcover in the States, the Farseer trilogy. And if it weren't for that Warbreaker edition that just came out, this would be absolutely beautiful, and I talk about how amazing it is. But very, very handsome collection. But yeah, I've never read Hobb. I have had Robin Hobb, like I said, since high school. Go ahead and tell you guys. I graduated in 1997, so that tells you how long ago this was. So yeah, in high school, Robin Hobb was on my radar to read, and I just never have. Her or Ursula Le Guin. I don't know why. Those are like the 2, titans, I feel like, female fantasy authors, and I've never read either of them. And I definitely wanted to make it a point. And seeing that how many votes it got against some of these other series, I was actually surprised. Like I said, I knew that it had a following, but I didn't feel like this much. So I think most of my interactions on Instagram for when I put this poll up were for to talk about Robin Hobb, to talk about Farseer, talk about Tawny Man, Fitz, just all of her realm of the Elderling series. That it has a pretty big following that I wasn't aware of. But like I said, before I started doing Wheel of Time stuff, I never had any idea it was as huge as it was. So these fantasy communities, they are dedicated. They are really, really out there. You just don't hear about it from like the usual folks because, I don't know, I feel like a lot of fantasy readers, if it was written before 1990, it doesn't exist. So to me, being a traditionalist, Lord of the Rings being my favorite fantasy series of all time, obviously I'm going to be more into that. So definitely excited to do that. But guys, I mean, it's a no-brainer. You know what won this poll by a landslide. I mean, this wasn't even close. 47% of the vote, 140 total votes. Malazan. And you hear the deep sigh because I want to give you a little history with this. And when I get there and I do my, why I decided to read Malazan video that I will inevitably do, is that this is a series that I have been kicking the can down the road since 2008. My excuse in 2008 when I first got sold on the series was, well, I want to wait for it to be done. Then it was done. And then it was every year I just find a reason to put it off. And then it was, I don't want to, it was between that and Wheel of Time. And I was like, I decided to go with Wheel of Time because it sounded more like my kind of fantasy. And I always would find an excuse not to read it because I'm not going to lie, it seems like work. It seems like a lot of work. And everyone tells me, yeah, basically you're not going to understand what's going on until about book 4. I'm like, wow, these aren't small books either. This is pretty tiny fonts in here. It's pretty tiny. And the books just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And there's add-on novels by, I guess his partner, Ian Esselmont, writes a lot of other novels. There's other novellas he does. I'm just talking about the 10. The Book of the Fallen, the 10 novels. If I absolutely read those and I love them, sure, I'll read all the side stuff. But I'm not investing in reading this in this specific 23 books in this order. No. I'm not doing that. If I really like that, then I'll go back and I'll read these other things. But this is just for, just the 10. The Book of the Fallen, not the Empire, not the Path of Ascendancy, not any of that stuff. Just the 10 books. The 10 very large books. Now let me tell you what the plan is here. Since when you guys vote on these things, I do what you guys want. I started reading Rhaenyra because you guys wanted me to, and I'm thankful. Rhaenyra is great, and I will get back to that very soon. Just the Cosmere stuff really bogged me down, and the whole Dresden Files thing. I'll get into it later. I'm going to follow through with this, so I'll be wide open next year. But here's the plan: it isn't going to be like a one book a month or anything like that. Much like my Wheel of Time, which will basically take me about a year and a half to get through, I imagine I'll do something similar with these books, especially since, from what I understand, they require a lot of homework, before and after the reading. So I feel like I'm going to really take my time and soak this in and try to let the material stick. Because I feel like if you just kind of start to blow that, I had this problem when I read like the first 6 Wheel of Time books in like 8 weeks. And I started to feel like I was not just missing some things, I wasn't retaining anything. Like I was like, wait, what happened? When did this happen? So I feel like to avoid burnout, the best way to do these things is always to kind of take your time with them. So the plan for Guardians of the Moon obviously would be January. That would be my big read in January of 2021. And again, I know this is a long way off, but again, I usually work in risk analysis. I like to plan ahead at least 12 to 16 months at a time. That's just how I am, okay? Yes, I even brought that kind of experience into reading. But anyway, what I would probably do is read that in January, and then March or April, pick up book 2. So it's going to be something where it's like one book every other month or every 3 months or so. It's nothing I'm going to be burning through. So if that's what you guys are wanting, might not be the channel for that. But I really would like to see what the conversation is, because I looked for a lot of Malazan content on YouTube, and I don't find that there's like as much out there. And I really feel like it's because, how do I say this? This series seems like it's the master's degree of fantasy reading, whereas if I feel like Wheel of Time would be your bachelor's, and something lighter would be your 2-year. So this really feels like the next level of fantasy reading, and I feel like a lot of people get so intimidated by it, myself included. I'm definitely not. I am in that group. I have been intimidated by this series for a long time. I feel like they just kind of tap out on it. They either they read the first book, and everyone says you read the first book and you're going to be confused. You're going to be like, what the hell did I just read? I have already told myself, look, you're going to have to take your time. You're going to have to be patient. And everyone tells me if you put in that work at the beginning, the payoff is so incredible that you will lose your mind. I am very patient with these books. Very, very patient. So I know everybody's going to go back to my, you didn't like Liza Lockmore. I didn't not like Liza Lockmore. I just didn't love it like you guys did. It's just, anyway. I don't know why that keeps coming back. So it's something I'm going to take my time with. But here's the big twist about this poll, guys. I plan on reading all of these in 2021. Okay? So, yeah, these are just like the big series. And you know what? I actually wish I'd put a sci-fi book on here. If I had to drop one from this list, it probably would have been Belgariad, and I'd have put something like Hyperion on here by Dan Simmons, because I do definitely feel like I don't want this to become the fantasy channel. I do still read my horror. I am going to keep doing my Into the Multiverse series of Stephen King books. I am going to continue reading the Expanse novels, as the show progresses along. So I'm going to have science fiction still on the channel. I'd like to get into an Ender's Game series. obviously Dune content is going to be ramped up with the movie coming out later this year. So I'm definitely going to be kind of still moving around things, but these are the handful of series that I plan on really getting into in 2021, and hopefully maybe I can get more of you to understand why I imagine I'm going to like The Faithful and the Fallen. Maybe I'll get more people to give it a chance, but I can see what people love so much about the realm of the realm of the elderly. I don't know why you want to keep calling it the realm of the underlings. It's weird. It's weird. Realm of the elderlings. Powder Mage, obviously. So it's just I'm just going to kind of go through this like I did with everything that I've done the last 2 years, where I'll read one book and then kind of move to the next series and just kind of shuffle it around. If it's something that I just cannot put down, like Red Rising, then I'll just go ahead and read those back to back to back. But like I said, with Malazan, I'm intentionally going to take my time because I would like to really understand it and not be one of these people who's in book 4. Like, I'll read reviews on Goodreads for, non-spoiler obviously, for book 4 of Malazan, and people will be like, I still don't know what's going on. And I was like, I don't want to be that. I know that there's things that aren't going to be answered, but I don't want to just be I don't want to be 2 million words in and feel like I have no idea what I'm reading and not really picking up anything. I want to make sure that I do it right. So I want to make sure that I take good notes, that I understand everything, that I actually make maps and Excel spreadsheets to keep all the nations separate, because a lot of people tell me, you know how you get your traditional fantasy book, and it'll say like, okay, you got a region here, you got a nation here, you got a region here, and then to the west is like endless ocean. Apparently it's not like that in Malazan. Erickson he's filling out the whole globe here. Apparently there's like 18 different continents and stuff, so it sounds deep, and I want to make sure that I give it the time that it deserves to really, really soak it all in and understand it clearly, because I definitely don't want to be, 40% through with this series and saying, I don't understand what's going on at all. There's a difference between not understanding something and just having unanswered questions. So I just want to make sure that I hit the ladder on there. So guys, that's where I am, and that's I thank you guys so much for participating in the poll. And I really believe now you guys really want to hear me talk about Malazan. That's when I first started this channel, the number one question that I got, when all I was doing was Wheel of Time and First Law and some Sanderson discussion on the channel, the question I got the most is, will you be reviewing Malazan? And I always said, not until I finish Wheel of Time. I don't have any more excuses, and I am big about giving the people what they want. So if this is what you guys want, even though like I said, it feel like there's not a ton of it out there on YouTube, but I also don't feel like there's a ton of First Law stuff on YouTube. Whenever I talk about First Law, it gets a lot of interaction. So I'm not against talking about something that isn't like super mainstream popular. I'm definitely not against that at all. What I'm about is the interaction. So if you guys are interacting with me, keep hitting that. If you guys are interacting with me and talking to me about these things, yeah, obviously I have no problems doing these series. And if you guys want to hear me talk about Malazan, well, so be it. It is a date with destiny. This has just seemed inevitable for 12 years now since I first discovered this series. So it's a long time coming, and it's finally going to happen. And I am both excited and scared. I am absolutely terrified of this series. I don't know why. It's just always looked at me like that bully big brother that you think that you're ready to fight and you're just not. But right here you're always thinking, I don't know, he's always going to be quicker. He's always going to be faster than me. So that's where I'm at, guys. So thank you so much for participating in the poll. And drop in the comments. Let me know what you guys think about this. Yes, I do intend to start all these series in 2021. So I hope you're at least interested in the 5. And like I said, maybe something like a Hyperion, which has always been something I've been interested in doing and never have. Other series that I haven't gotten to finish yet, like Conan, like Rhaenyra, things like that, are also going to be going on in 2021. Such a long way in advance, but I got to get through 2020 first, which, it's the second that Brandon Sanderson announced that 4th Stormlight book, it just kind of wrecked my entire schedule, because I always said I